性的、非常专业的分享，掌声送给他，谢谢。稍事休息一下，接下来还有令人期待的对话环节的分享。每到这一刻啊，我们工作人员就非常的辛苦，我们也把掌声送给幕后的辛苦的工作人员，谢谢他们。科技创新的最终目的是让全人类共享发展的成果。那么，在全球化时代，我们又将如何实现科技普惠？接下来这场对话将深入探讨这一问题。我们有请本场对话的主持人克罗地亚塞格勒布经济与管理学院院长马托尼亚夫罗教授，以及我们的对话嘉宾佩塔尔·拉丹利耶夫先生。前布达佩斯经济与商业大学企业家与商业博士学院院长洛松次米克什教授，我们掌声欢迎三位。We are looking forward to the inspiring and professional dialogue session. Welcome. 我们非常期待这场精彩的对话，掌声欢迎。
Ni hao. Hello, everybody. Good day. And it's a great pleasure to be here today with you at the 2025 Global Sustainability Leaders Conference. It's a great pleasure to be in Shanghai. I want to congratulate the organizers. I have had the pleasure of attending this event last year. So to see that this event has moved to a much larger venue just shows how successful the last year's event was, how important the topic of sustainability is, and it's absolutely a pleasure being with you here today and with two distinguished guests who will have a discussion today with Professor Miklos from Budapest Business University from Hungary. He's the former head of doctoral school in entrepreneurship and business, and colleague Professor Radanliev from Oxford University and from Turing Institute. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today. And the topic is inclusive technology growth with AI. First, let's try to put it a little bit in the ESG context, because when we say inclusive, the word inclusive, AI has really turned out to be a very inclusive technology. Maybe since 2020 November, since the first GPT, ChatGPT came out and AI became mainstream, billions of people started using and interacting with AI on a daily basis, right? So that this is what happens at the front end. At the back end, I'm an economist, so I introduced the speakers, but I didn't introduce myself. I'm a dean of Zagreb School of Economics and Management from Croatia. So as an economist, if you look at the technology of AI, and if you look at it through the prism of inputs and outputs, on the input side, for successful AI, you need energy and chips, and you need data. On the output side, we know what it is. It's the front-facing apps. Now, Professor Radanliev, you are very much at the cutting edge of AI through your, I would say, long-term work at the Oxford University, through your work at Alan Turing Institute. One particular holy grail of AI is the AGI, right? When we look at this strategy of most of the strongest AI players today in terms of how to reach the AGI, what they are doing is they're really investing billions, hundreds of billions, maybe even trillions of dollars into scaling up this first input, which is the compute and the energy, in order to train and at the same time getting even more and more data. From your perspective, as somebody who's been working with AI for a long period of time, is this the right path to AGI? Does it will it eventually bring us closer to the AGI?
I think it's the combination of technologies that they're bringing us closer together. So if you look at just one technology in isolation, it's not going to achieve artificial general intelligence, but when you cluster them together, when you put in a cloud computing, quantum computer, then you have AI models, the combination of those simple calculators becomes a little bit more than a simple calculator. Look at linear regression, for example, and most of the AI models before the transformer. Researchers have been plugging data to those and getting results. It's a relatively straightforward process and relatively safe. But when we combine them with this generative AI, it changes the narrative. It's no longer, following what we told it. It's compared to a train versus a car. A train follows a path. That's the AI in the old days. Now the AI with agentic systems, it's more like a self-driving car, makes decisions on its own. And you don't know how those decisions are made. You have loops, but then autonomy is what drives it. And now combine this autonomy with thousands of agents and give it the power of a quantum computer in the cloud and combine it with neurosymbolic AI, well, you have the beginning of AGI. So the combination is what is going to bring that artificial general intelligence. But if you keep them separate, it's very unlikely that they will ever evolve into a higher form.
Thank you very much. Professor Miklos, all of us here on the panel today are from the academic setting, academic environment. When ChatGPT was first launched in November 2022, it was really the academic community, the higher education sector, or the education sector in general, that was at the front line of this battle with AI. The early adopters of AI were our students. As somebody who has a long, extensive experience in higher education system, how would you say that AI has changed higher education in terms of both research as well as teaching, and where do you see the future going?
The artificial intelligence has really changed the attitude of the participants of higher education and the attitude of the research community. So let me start with the scientific research issue. AI can be successfully applied in compiling, in elaborating literature summaries. One cannot decide the value-added content of these literature reviews. AI is a very helpful tool to come over the first part of scientific publications. I think the consequence will be that the publishers will not focus on publishing papers based on literature review. The second issue that scientific publications face is the value-added content. What is the part, the element, the constituent of a paper attributed to the intellectual efforts of the author or several authors? This is a very crucial problem, and I think we have only questions in this field rather than proper answers to these challenges in scientific research. The second point concerns higher education. I am an economist as well. I am not familiar with the specific features of other sciences, natural science system. In economics and business, the sciences, we have gathered quite a huge amount of experience. Students apply artificial intelligence in elaborating their final thesis. There are buzzwords which appear frequently in AI-generated text. We can evaluate from this standpoint their performance. On the other hand, the question is to ban, to prohibit the use of AI, or to allow its use within strictly defined barriers, limitations. I think this is not a question anymore, since prohibition is not feasible at all.
Excellent. Thank you very much. This morning, Professor Levitt had a very interesting presentation showing his perspective on AI, but one of the points he made was still the best intelligence and definitely the most efficient intelligence out there is the human and the human brain, given that it only uses about 20 watts of power to operate, which is equivalent to a light bulb. At the same time, given that we are at this sustainability conference and ESG is a very important topic, we are seeing recently that the major players in this domain, in the AI race, are investing, as I said, billions in building new capacities, new data centers, and these data centers will require tremendous amount of energy to run, right? We're talking about gigawatts and gigawatts. Professor Radanliev, from your experience, how do you think the world will square this need to further develop AI with the need to power it from somewhere? So what is your take? How will we be able to create enough clean energy in order to support the upcoming AI revolution?
Yeah, starting from the connection between the human brain and artificial intelligence, it's not likely that we're ever going to be able to reproduce the human brain in artificial form. Just to give you an example why that is not going to happen, the human brain has more connecting points than there are stars in the universe. And to create that, it will trigger vast amount of energy demand. Now, think about all the computers and all the computing power that we have in the entire world. That wouldn't be able to feed not a single brain, not one brain. So we're not trying to replicate the human brain. What we're trying to replicate with artificial intelligence is how the neural nets are operating in the human brain. How do we do certain things with less activation points? So, and in that matter, I think we're doing pretty well, but it requires more and more energy. So the new solutions that they're coming up with, more efficient chips, are never going to be as efficient as we want them to be, so we need more power. And there's direct correlation between energy consumption and economic growth. So there's a parallel line, so to speak. Countries that they grow economically, usually they demand more energy. Some of the solutions, if you eliminate that, we're not going to have more efficient chips tomorrow, we're going to build them in the future, that's something that's going to come in the future. So for tomorrow, what we could do, and China is doing this already, many countries are talking about doing, I'm not sure how many are doing, but you have renewable energy sources. So you can build these cloud centers, and we already agreed that everything is going to be in the cloud anymore, so there's no need for this infrastructure to be placed somewhere else. It can be placed closer to the renewable center, and that's how you would power it. Now, from a security perspective, this is very problematic because you have few central points. You take those points out, and you have a catastrophic risk. So this kind of infrastructure needs to be decentralized, but decentralization doesn't lead to efficiencies. There are some concepts from the 1950s that we're still trying to replicate, and we can't, but that's where I believe the future is. That the cities would feed their energies on their own. So for example, in that concept, the cars would be made out of solar panels, and they would be connected to the grid. And during the day when they collect energy, they will be feeding the grid. During the night when the person has to drive home, they will be going home. This is just one of a much larger concept. But why is it not implemented so far? Because it's expensive, it's time demanding, and central points are cheaper. So for now, we're probably going to be better off with using renewable energy until we develop those technologies. But there are many people working in that sphere, it's just that we are not there yet. And if you think why humanity has such advancement comparing to other species, we had more time. So we basically need more time, and climate change is not helping because they're pressuring with the time.
Do you want to comment, Professor Miklos, on the same question of energy, or?
This issue is relevant for China particularly, as far as I know. There is a regional gap between the Western part of the country and the eastern part. The western part is characterized by energy production, whereas consumers, data centers, and other facilities, institutions using artificial intelligence and other high-quality AI services are located in the eastern part. So a transfer of energy is required from the west to the east in China. As far as, for example, my home country, Hungary, is concerned, we witnessed quite interesting experiences, not in the context of artificial intelligence, but in the area of developing new industries, such as the electric vehicle production. Chinese companies tend to produce the energy necessary for the production process in-house. So they set up solar panels to care for the energy, to meet the energy needs of the production lines. And I think more or less a more or less similar solution could be applicable in the area of artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much. And maybe last question for both speakers. The next phase of AI development will certainly be some kind of cyber-physical synergy. When we are, in order to get here to this venue, we drove in a very fancy and well-developed Chinese electric vehicles where the AI capabilities are already kind of put together with a physical product. In a globalized world where these Chinese, let's say, vehicles will be exported to the US or to Europe or to Africa, this raises the question that Professor Radanliev, you raised in your previous presentation, the question of AI governance. Are you optimistic that we will be able, as a humanity, as a world in whole, agree on certain set of principles on how to govern AI development, or is the future more fragmented, where Europe creates its own story, China creates its own story, and the US its own story? What is your take on that? Just briefly.
I think it's you cannot have the whole pie. You have to separate it in two pieces. There's some aspects that different countries that just won't agree. Regardless of what you say, they will never agree. But there are aspects that they're very easy to agree. For example, the risk of a systematic collapse. That's something that you can agree upon today. The need for transparency. We cannot have these AI models just doing what they want without any transparency. We need to be able to audit them. Those are the key areas that we can agree upon. But then the other areas, European Union is very conservative about the views on data privacy. And there's nothing wrong with having competition between different approaches, as long as it's safe. So it's the safety that we can agree upon.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Just a quick point, Professor Miklos.
I think we have more questions than responses to the challenges of the artificial intelligence. The scientific community has to find a response to this challenge, how to measure real intellectual performance. And in the higher education system should also adjust to this new situation, addressing the needs of the corporate sector. What kind of skills, knowledge, companies or the business community in general needs, and how these requirements could be met by higher educational institutions.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Professor Radanliev, Professor Miklos for joining us here for this very interesting, insightful conversation. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks very much for your special and your wonderful conversation. Please take your seats. Thanks for sharing. 谢谢，感谢以上3位嘉宾给我们带来的精彩分享，为我们勾勒出了 科技创新通向普惠未来的可行路径。思想需要引领，行动需要指南。那么大会的最后一个环节，我们将集中发布一系列关于 ESG 与可持续发展的重磅研究成果。这些报告凝聚了业界与学界的智慧，将为企业的可持续发展提供宝贵的参考。